welcome to the next episode of Discipline, Desire, Dedication. My name is Dakota Lang, along co-host Garrett Cotton. Today we have a guest that has been on our podcast before. It was actually the top revenue market owner for our 2025 calendar year. Heidi Davidson, welcome back.
Thanks. Good to be here.
Absolutely. We're super pumped.
Heidi Morgan.
Oh,
we ain't gotta forget.
Correct me. Last time it was Heidi Davidson.
Yes.
Now it's Heidi Morgan.
You put a ring on it this year.
That's awesome. Well, keep us up to date. You got a ring on your finger this year. You got married.
Yes, married. 2 more houses, 2 more LLCs being made. So lots of busy year for us.
That's super awesome. One thing that me and Cotton were talking about before when I was on the way here, and we were kind of masterminding, just talking about the podcast today. And one thing that really hit me previously, and I definitely want to get into more of your LLCs, your business and stuff like that. But one thing that was real inspiring for me was the Instagram post that you made probably, 2 weeks ago, maybe, about pretty much that you had a customer that you worked with and you bought him windows. Is that correct?
I did, yeah. I surprised him, actually. So I was in the appointment, kind of rundown place. He's like reaching almost 90, I think, as well, too.
Single?
Single guy. And he had just had a pretty rough upbringing. He had been taken advantage of a lot of times. He had been robbed several times in the current house that he's in. And he's got a couple medical issues. He's a little bit slower. And he was super excited about windows. He's got single pane windows. House is super hot during the summertime, super cold during the winter times. And he sleeps on his couch because he can't physically walk to his bed every single day. So he's right by the window. So again, he gets the most heat and the most cold during the summer and winter times. And he was super excited about windows, but he was telling me he felt a little stressed financially about it because he had a 70 or 80K loan for solar, and for his house size, the amount of panels he had didn't make sense, and based on his energy bills there was just a lot of things that didn't make sense. He had issues getting in touch with a rep and within the company, and unfortunately that's something we see all across solar and a lot in the industry is it's changed a lot of our lives, but there's not always really honest reps, behind the contract and behind the company. So as I was driving home, I know I'm an honest salesman. I gave him the best deal, that I could give him. But I just did not feel good about it. And so I called Levi up and I was like, hey, can we just cancel his loan? And I would love to be able to pay for his windows and pay for installation. And I didn't tell him up until the day of install. So I don't know if he was also not all there because he didn't ask about payments or how to set up the loan or anything for those couple months. So anyways, I told my operations manager, I was like, I'm going to take care of this follow-up. So I went in person to, tell him that I surprised him with his windows. But the thing is I was asking him about his Christmas and holidays, and doesn't have a lot of family, and they all canceled on him. And so he's just kind of just feeling a little Debbie Downer recently. So when I told him, it almost brought him to tears, which it made my heart so full that I was able to bless somebody else. I've been blessed with so much here, so it just felt good to be able to give back. He hadn't seen the outside of his windows yet, which made me so sad because he was having a hard time getting to the door. So I offered to help get his shoes on, get his walker on, and he just asked if he could just sit inside and take a picture. So I got a picture with his performance window sign out in front. So yeah, I never felt such a strong impression until after that point where I was like, I wish I could do this for more people. Can't do it for everybody, right? Yeah. We're a business, got to make money, but I think there's times where we're just inspired, to be able to give back and to be able to make things right for people.
And we can kind of relate. I don't know if you remember this or not, but whenever Dakota was coming through, and just on the opportunity of performance windows, how it's given us so much opportunity, and kind of like on the opportunity of bringing in recruits. I used to always say, whenever Dakota was on his second qualifier month, I don't know if you remember this guy, but it was the last week of the month. He only needed 1 or maybe 2 sales left for the month to get your closer qualification. And this, it was like an 18 or 17-year-old Mexican kid that Dakota had set. And he spoke great English, but his dad was fluent Spanish, so only spoke Spanish. And we were like, well, let's run it. So we go in there, and Dakota was in the appointment with us, and we did the whole entire thing. get down to the end of it, and it was a credit fail, and it kind of broke our heart because you could tell how bad the son was trying to tell the husband, the father, and the father was trying to work to get it to make it happen, and it just couldn't happen. And it came where me and Dakota, we walked out and we were like, hey, if it comes to the last sale of the month, we're going to buy their windows for them. But it's because we have the ability to through Performance Windows. It's really blessed us more ways than we can imagine.
And that's something that we can top off on is like, especially like closers, knockers that are with Performance Windows, like the impact that we're able to make on so many lives is truly unexplainable. You know what I mean? So especially in like your journey this past year as market owner, right? You made a big impact on his lives, but let's talk about the other, 50 people that have probably went through your office this year or upwards of that even if they're not with you now, right? You still were able to make that impact on your lives. What are some of the lessons that you've learned, with trying to coach people and really make an impact on them, coming through your office?
Yeah, I've been super grateful for the opportunity to move up in the company, and so fast Performance Windows is known for just growth within a couple years, just like that. Each promotion brings in more challenges, but it also brings in a bigger paycheck. But also I'm just like, my heart is a lot more full because I get to change a lot of people's lives. I was, prepping my presentation for tomorrow for onboarding, and I think it's a lot easier to take an office from 20 people to 40 people versus 5 to 10, and the big difference that just culture makes it, right? But it's also very easy to lose track of people. So I'm just very busy, lots of follow-up, and I've just learned that it's important to be able to run just inspiring meetings and get everyone hyped, but it's all about the individual communication that you make every day to make sure that no one gets stuck in between the cracks, right? It's a lot easier to like watch over an office with 4 people. You see all of their start pins, their out pins, how many pins they have in the day. If there's no sets, you kind of recognize that. But with a lot bigger office, I've had to be just a lot more diligent in the way that I track numbers for my closers, tracking self-gens, overall revenue. So just being very detail oriented and diligent in it so that no one else falls through the cracks there. I feel a lot of responsibility to help everyone make this work, but it's also recognizing it's up to them. At the end of the day, the people who are going to make this work are going to make it work, and the people who choose not to, sometimes it's just their choice at the end of the day for it.
Well, one thing that I really loved what you said is something that I always say is like culture, right? And whenever you go to somebody and you're trying to tell them like, dude, you need a good culture in your office, it can kind of be misleading in ways, right? Because if they knew how to make a good culture, they would make a good culture. But what would you describe as a good culture in not just, Performance Windows, especially in your office, but just as an entrepreneur as a whole? How would you describe that?
I think it's great that everyone's friends, and I always talk about that. I think it's important to switch up knocking partners so that they always stay accountable, because it's easy to sit in your car, not knock as much. But I think healthy competition. We always want everyone to succeed, but listen, I still want to make more than both of you guys, right? I still want to do more revenue. And so I think it's like, hey, we all respect and love each other and we'll hang out outside of work, but I've got a little bit more drive than you. I want to make a little bit more money. So healthy competition, I think, is really important in office culture.
Yeah. You got anything?
Yeah, no, culture is really, really big. And just on the aspect of, building that big winning culture, I'm sure that you've learned it as well. Whenever you have a big office versus a small office, what are some of the situations that you've had where people might have, fell into the cracks or they didn't get that attention that they were needed in a bigger office?
Mm-hmm. In a small office, it's really also easy to grab people after the meetings to just have a quick chit chat. But now that I've had 6 closers the last couple months, 5 or 6, give or take. And it's been super great because some days I can delegate responsibilities to do role plays and kind of help me get started with the meeting so that I can do a quick one-on-one with like 20 people. Because after the meeting, it's like, listen, we're just trying to go out and knock doors, get it done. So being able to also recognize that I'm a manager over the closers in my office so that I can help them become good leaders and managers over the knockers, because it's overwhelming when you just feel in charge of everybody.
It does.
It's important to delegate.
Sometimes you get redundant too of like the message it's just you're beating the same message every single day. It's good to hear it from a different perspective. So your first market spinoff has just been announced for Cowan, right? So Cowan's going to be going to El Paso, Texas for February 15th. What's some some of the challenges you think you might endure whenever Callan's out of your office?
I think just, lower numbers. He's got a super strong closing ratio. Every 10 appointments, he's got at least 7 or 8 of them that are going to be closed. Callan is also my strongest recruiter. So it's important. It's really funny because I earned a top recruiter award, and I did not know I was in the race for it until we counted up numbers. Just because I'm thinking everyone else is a better recruiter. You guys are always having people live with you. And I had 5 people live with me this year, but I didn't think it was anything crazy compared to everyone else. So when we started counting up the numbers, I was like, oh, wait, I'm in the running for it. And I was just like, that's on just recruiting always. You talk to everybody who you think would, be good. And even if you just kind of see some potential in someone, just everyone has to know how much you love your job, that it pays a lot of money, and that we're hiring. And when everyone knows that and that it's changed your life, not a lot of people can say that their job has changed their life. So I thought it was just really funny that I earned that this year, and that's just on, always be closing.
I feel like that kind of goes hand in hand with closing, though. It's kind of like closing is, you have to have that salesman mindset. I mean, it's sell or be sold is your lifestyle in order to be a good closer. Recruiting is the same. Recruiting is selling, but you have to always be looking for the opportunity to recruit somebody. So I feel like in my experience, I never thought of myself to be in that running type stuff as well. I don't think I've ever been on leaderboard for like sales or recruiting or anything like that. It's just because I'm always trying to help my teams grow. But it's by us just being in that mindset all the time, it pushes us up to the top.
Yeah, and I'll talk about this tomorrow in our meeting with just onboarding starts with recruiting. And it's really tough to see these market owners who are top knockers, top closers, but are not top market owners yet. And it's because they are lousy recruiters. And you can't tell me that you're a top closer for the year, but you're a lousy recruiter. You should have even more recruits because you've made even so much more money, right?
Everybody should want to come set for you.
Yeah, and it's sell or be sold, right? That it's like if you can sell millions of dollars of windows, you can sell somebody on the fact that they should quit their job to come do what come do what you're doing.
We give them a quota for doors to knock and conversations to have, or closing hours, but we don't give a quota of you have to bring in a recruit per month. Or for me and my experience as a market owner, anytime that I start to see a revenue slump, I'm like, I got to get somebody in my house. I got to get a recruit in here. Because by me being a recruiter, the people in the office would replicate that, Just coming back to,
and that's one thing I definitely want to capitalize on is, like you said, Callan is one of your best recruiters. So in our past experiences, we both remember I was his first spinoff out of Denver, and I was one of his top recruiters coming in there. What were some of the emotions that you feel, currently that, you're losing one of your top recruiters, one of your top dogs, somebody that you can really, your right-hand man that you can rely on? What are some of your thought processes on of like what do I need to do to get somebody to step up and take his shoes? For sure, yeah. It's just having that conversation of, I want you to be my right-hand man. It's like letting them know Callan's been my right-hand man the last few months, always on recruiting and shadowing and helping these new people, organic recruiting, but also from Indeed kind of get started, and just giving that responsibility to someone of like, I am putting you in charge as my right-hand man. Yep. I need your help because you're going to be the next guy to be able to leave. Even if that person doesn't jump in that role right away, it's a lot of pressure of you holding them to a standard. Because there's people who, have came to the office where it's kind of like, well, this is all I got, and this person has to be developed into a better leader, so it just takes more attention. You got a little bit of both. I've got some people who are just natural born leaders, and some people are just going to take a little bit more effort to get out there to get the job done for it. Yeah, but just that attention, it'll get there. And then also, like, I don't know. I just remember, so Trent was the first spinoff out of Austin whenever I was the market owner. And just thinking back to the emotions that I had, you know what I mean? And also, like, whenever you're able to build that vision throughout your whole office, when they're like, okay, well, the guy that I just watched work for 5 to 6 months is going to open up his own branch, right? The vision that builds throughout everybody else in your office should be through the roof. You know what I mean? Because they're being able to see somebody do it right in front of their eyes. Talk about that a little bit. Yeah, I think part of the big culture that I realized that I was lacking as a market owner is I had 4 or 5 closers who just did not have a desire to become a market owner.
that terrible?
And I was just like, you guys, I've got the best job in the world. Everyone should want this, right? And I realized, I was like, oh my gosh, I've been here for a year and I haven't had any spinoffs. Now, some market owners have inherited closers from other offices that got spun off really quickly, where it was just me and a 6-year-old gal day one, right?
Yep.
All of my closers that I have now started as a knocker, didn't come from other offices. So not making an excuse. So that was just why it took a little bit longer, right? But part of the reason why it took a lot longer than I think other market owners is because I did not have a culture of you have got to get to your promotion as fast as possible. With knockers, we talk about that all the time, becoming closers, but I realized I was training my closers on script and window demo and hard yes or no line and all those other things. But I was like, we do not talk about being a market owner enough. And I'm not creating this vision that there is so much more beyond, being a closer outside of just the money of it. I'm just a lot more happy, a lot more fulfilled. It's a little more exhausting from time to time, but yeah, just a lot more energized and fulfilled at the end of the day.
It's kind of just on the topic of I think I'm a hate to see the day that you're not with the company anymore, because, you do have a different route of you want to be a mother and all that kind of stuff. But you're an individual who in our company sees it like we see it, as you sell vision very, very well. And there's a lot of people in our company who don't sell the vision so much, but they sell great systems, or they're great sales coaches. But I think the vision is such a huge aspect to the growth of the company to get it to where we want it to be. Because if we can't show them what they're working towards, then what are they working for?
Yeah. And that's a direct reflection of why you are the top recruiter in the company and why you are the number one market owner, for 2025 with the most revenue.
Selling vision,
right? Making people believe into what you're going to. One thing I was going to say is, before Cotton cut me off track, I was going to say something in regards to, with Callan and stuff like that moving on. When you have these other people that, maybe are not big recruiters, what are some of the tactics or some of the coaching points that you give them to where they can able to, develop that skill set?
Mm-hmm. So we first talk about your circle, right? All of my recruits are like friends or family. It's tough to talk about, the guy at the gas station, right? It just becomes a lot harder. And a lot of people are like, well, because I'm 40 years old, no one my age wants to do it. And it's like, you're getting sold on your own excuses. I had a 6-year-old gal in here who made 6 figures, within her first couple years here. And it's like, it was unfortunate that she had to start life over at 60 years old, but if she can do it, anybody can do it. So do not get sold and do not have any bias towards anyone, right? When you look at our office, we have got black and white, gay, straight, young and old, rich and broke, different religious views, different political views, and that has not stopped any of them from having success. So when you truly believe that anybody can do the job, it's like everyone has seen that one interesting person who's you're just like a little shocked that they're doing well, and it's just like, it's because it's not a them thing, it's a Performance Windows thing. They had a script and a system that just worked if you followed it,
yep, it's up to us to just give them the
consistently.
info.
Before I forget my thought, this is what I was thinking, is because this is one thing that I think that me and him were very well at, and which is what helped us scale to the position that we are currently, is that, like you were talking about, culture of getting people to become market owners. One thing that I think that a lot of market owners do struggle with is building the culture to be able to get people to realize, you're not going to be able to just take over the market that you're currently in, right? To be able to move, right? A lot of people, especially like older closers that are in the company that might have family in their hometowns and stuff like that. But at the same time, you have to be willing to sacrifice that to be able to, elevate your career.
But it starts with selling the vision of, from early on, that you're going to have to move to grow in the company.
That's what I'm telling people, even when we're having spinoffs, is like moving will be one of the best decisions you can be, within the company, is you will also achieve market owner a lot faster if you're willing to move, right? If you're not willing to move, there's not a lot of people who are going to take over an office. You're going to have to wait a long time for that. And even then, Levi and Kyle won't give it to you anyways because you weren't willing to move.
Exactly.
You don't get to inherit $1 million office not willing to move, right? But everyone pays and everyone has to sacrifice. There are people who did not save money, did not invest, and now they're paying in their late 50s and 60s, having to work a lot longer than they wanted to, right? But I'm paying now being away from family. I've moved several times. I've done the hard things, but I'm paying now so that I can have a better life. And it's decades of freedom we're talking about. The couple years of sacrifice moving, and even if you had to be in a market for 3 or 4 years before you were regional, that is so worth it to be able to have the next 30 and 40 years of freedom for the rest of your life.
100%.
100%. And one thing, so definitely on the market, on the performance windows topic, one thing I think is real inspiring about you is that you're always a go-getter, right? Talk about like this real estate journey that you really, hit head on, with the Airbnbs, all that type of stuff. Was that something that you've always wanted to be a part of, or were you inspired by something that maybe, you had a mentor in it or anything like that?
I think it was just this idea of passive income. And it was funny because I was talking about reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad when I first started at Performance Windows, and Kyle Deaver was like, put that book down, stop. There is no passive income, talk about your main income. So it's really funny that I've got 3 houses, my primary residence, I've got a long-term rental, and I've got an Airbnb. Gosh, I love my Airbnb so much more because it's an actual business. It's in my control how much revenue, the place does versus my, short or long-term rental. It's just the same monthly. Yeah. But the thing is that I think people have this idea of passive income, but right now that's not happening for a lot of people because houses are expensive. You have to put, a large chunk down, and interest rates are so high that oftentimes you're just like breaking even. So my long-term rental, I'm playing a long game with it, just breaking even until I can refinance, put more money down on it, but it's like the Airbnb, that is the fun part because it's a business. I get to control the renovations, the people that are coming by, and prices and all those things that kind of go into a business to generate revenue.
What would you tell, because there's a lot of people that work with Performance Windows. I mean, including ourselves, obviously we're going the wedding venue route, a little bit different than Airbnbs. But there is people within Performance Windows, closers, that are wanting to attack that route, but they just don't know how. What would be your number one advice on how to, get your first Airbnb?
Yeah, I think it's great that a lot of people can start anywhere because I'd eventually love to get into the wedding venue business too. You just have to have a lot of capital up front for it, right? So oftentimes as a first-time home buyer, you can put as little as 3.5% to 5% down. And also if you've got family in the military or have served yourself, oftentimes you can put no money down. Now, the next question is that oftentimes people still don't buy because they cannot afford a mortgage. And it's like, I couldn't afford the mortgage on my own at one point. So I had 3 roommates that lived with me, right? So I rented out so that either my rent is covered majority of the time and that's still going off to be able to pay off the loan, right? So take advantage of that. Even though it's great for someone to be able to afford 20% down, oftentimes 6 figures out of someone's pocket, just gone one day is not super realistic. Every 2 years, you can move out to be able to get another loan that you can put, 5% down as well. Too.
Every 2 years?
I think it's every 2 years, yeah. So we're looking at doing that again this year. But also, if you move with Performance Windows, oftentimes, so my second home that I got, I was able to claim it as a primary residence because I was outside of the Phoenix area for work. So it took a lot of paperwork to be able to get done. But my first house, I was able to get in at 3.5% down. And then I got the job opportunity to move to Tucson 2 months later. But I was able to provide enough information that I was far enough from Phoenix that would not be my, primary residence anymore. And I was able to put just 5% down on my second home as well too. So if you're open to moving, not just for Performance Windows, but moving every couple years, you can put very little down into real estate and, have long-term wealth.
We actually had Porter on the podcast, and that's something that him and his spouse do. Is they move every couple years, and that's how they build in their portfolio. So
and doing little renovations too, because then if you build a lot of equity, you can take a HELOC, a home equity line of credit, and then use that money for a down payment as well too. And just as years go by, the equity is just always going to go up. Everyone's looking for a big crash to happen, and I just don't think it's happening. It's just always going to slowly, keep climbing up, right?
I don't see it happening.
Yeah. Date the rate, marry the price. You always have to be in it for it long term. There's flippers and stuff who do very short term stuff, but when you're in it very long term, you're talking millions of dollars 20, 30 years from now when all the houses are paid off and they're all worth triple what you got them for, right?
That's right.
Literally. You got any last things?
No, I think you got a great story and great growth in the last year, and I'm excited to keep working with you.
Yeah, it's been awesome. Thank you so much.
Well, cool. You got any last things?
No, I'm good.
You good?
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, look. Is your Instagram still Heidi Davidson or is it Heidi Morgan?
Heidi
So
Jane.
it's Heidi. Yeah, so I
Heidi
put
Jane.
it's like Heidi_Jane114. I need to change
We
something
can't
like
change
that.
the Jane. Oh, now it's going to be Heidi Davidson.
Yeah.
Morgan.
But yeah, just Heidi Jane is up there.
Perfect. Well, hey, look, we appreciate all of you watching. Make sure to subscribe, like, and follow our channels as well. And also, look Heidi up on Instagram. You can find her at Heidi Jane. And if you have any questions, I know she'd be glad to help you any way that she can in the Airbnb route. Or even if you're a female that's wanting to become an entrepreneur, have any questions, reach out to her. I know she'd be glad to help you. But we appreciate all of you watching, and we'll catch you next time.